Hello.
Okay. Right, so today we're continuing on with Gaige Grosskreutz. Yeah. It's still on direct. I just can't stand either of these people. Can't stand Binger and I can't stand Gaige, but should we get on with it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Can we please bring up the live stream exhibit number 57 at the 55:44 mark, please? Go ahead.
We're here.
How's it going? You guys want to fuck around and find out?
Do it.
Fuck you!
You won't do it, pussy. That's what's up. You won't do it. That's what I'm fucking about, bitch. Go back to your mommy.
Protect your property, not the street. Protect the property, not the street. Protect your property, not the street. Protect your property, not the streets. Protect your property, not the streets. Protect the property, not the streets. Protect your 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 property, not the streets. That's what the fuck y'all here for.
What we just observed, Mr. Grosskreutz, is that part of the live stream that you recorded that evening?
That is.
And I noticed there seems to be a little bit of a lag in the audio to the video. Is that fair to say?
That is fair to say.
Okay. But is that a true and correct copy of what you recorded that night?
Apart from the 1 or 2 second delay, it is.
So this incident here with the dumpster and whatnot, were you physically there, right there, a few feet away when all this was going on?
I was.
And did you observe the people that were around you at that time?
I did.
On that particular evening, and again, I'm going to ask you to try and go back and put yourself in the mindset of that night. When you're out there on the streets that evening, had you ever heard of anyone by the name of Joseph Rosenbaum?
No.
Had you ever met that person before?
Never.
Do you recall seeing Joseph Rosenbaum at any point that evening?
I do not.
In particular, right around the time of this dumpster fire in front of 59th Street Car Source, do you recall seeing him around that at any point?
I do not.
Do you recall hearing anyone make any threats to any of the people at the Car Source location that if I get you alone, I'm going to kill you, or anything along those lines?
I do not.
Do you recall hearing anyone make any threats to any of those people at that Car Source location?
I do not.
You mentioned that the first time you saw the defendant was this person that was limping, being supported by other people. And I know you mentioned that eventually you saw that person walking away. Do you remember any other observations that you made of the defendant when you were at the 59th Street Car Source?
I do.
Can you tell us about that?
I took note, like I said, there were 4 people essentially in front of me that I could see, so I took note of what they were wearing, how they were armed. Like I said, they were all similarly armed with a similar weapon that the defendant used. Some of them, especially as you can see in the video, had body armor, chest rigs, and then I noted that the defendant was wearing a baseball cap, green shirt, jeans, and then also a rifle.
At that moment in time, did you have any idea who he was?
No,
Never met him before?
never.
Were there times in which you saw him wearing gloves on his hands?
I did.
When was that?
I recall this being right around this time. Then I noticed the defendant also wearing blue latex gloves, or maybe dark purple. latex gloves that are very common in a healthcare setting.
Did that strike you as unusual?
In the moment, no, it did not.
Do you wear gloves like that when you treat people?
I do.
Tell us about the process of putting them on and taking them off.
Yeah. So these gloves that are common throughout all healthcare systems, they're nitrile, or they can be latex or non-latex. These gloves are designed to essentially stop anything wet that you don't want on your hands, so like blood or any sort of bodily fluids. The idea is it's called body substance isolation. So despite it being a very thin piece of plastic, it's very good at keeping contagions off of your hands. So the idea is, and also keeping in mind too that you want to have your hands clean when you're also touching somebody else, especially if there's any sort of open wound. You want to minimize that potential for contamination or cross-contamination. The idea is that when you come upon a patient, obviously if you're able to, wash your hands, some sort of sanitizer, something along those lines, and then prior to administering aid or treatment to a patient, and then put these gloves on. And then after treating your patient, there is a specific way to remove your gloves that, let's say if there was some sort of fluid or contagion on the gloves, there's a proper way to remove them to where you wouldn't get your hands dirty afterwards with whatever it might be on the glove.
So when you're working as an EMT or a paramedic, do you typically keep one set of gloves on your hands constantly throughout your shift?
Never.
Why not?
Essentially for the reasons that I just stated. I mean, if you treat...
Essentially what?
Essentially for the reasons that I just previously stated. If you treat one patient, and on an ambulance shift, on a 24-hour shift, 48-hour shift, about one call every hour and a half. That's a lot of patients that you can see. That doesn't make sense. That's just not, one, proper hygiene. Two, it's not proper protocol. It would be detrimental to your health, every subsequent patient's health, and not only from touching or having contact with the patient themselves, but also everything else that you touch. We all know with COVID how easily things can spread. You're touching doorknobs, your face, pens, pencils, equipment, etc.
On this particular evening, after you were at the 59th Street car source, do you recall where you went after that?
I do. So from the car source location here, I started walking southbound down Sheridan.
Did you wind up at the ultimate gas station at the intersection of 60th and Sheridan?
I did.
Do you recall what, if anything, you did there?
Nothing different than I had previously been doing. So like I explained, when there was no patient essentially to treat, then I started recording. Again, I'm an ACLU legal observer. I thought that was the best way that night that I could provide another aspect or another perspective of an unbiased account. Video doesn't lie. Yes.
So when you were leaving 59th Street, heading down to the ultimate gas station, were you still wearing your hat with paramedic written on it?
I was.
Did you have anyone come up to you at that particular time and request any sort of medical assistance?
No, nobody did.
Did there come a time in which you heard gunshots?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
I was slightly south of Ultimate Gas Station. To be very specific, I think it's Ray's Barbershop, which is either the adjacent building or one there over. While I was recording, and I had heard a series of gunshots, what I determined to be a few blocks south of where I was.
What, if anything, did you do?
I first sat and listened, and then had there were people watching my live stream, so I had been narrating essentially what I was seeing, what I was hearing. I'd heard these gunshots and had commented on them, and then after seeing and hearing people running, well, I should say seeing people running northbound and then hearing people yelling medic, I started running southbound towards what I presumed at the time to be the origin of the gunshots.
Do you recall how far south you ran? There's a map up on the wall behind you if that's helpful.
From my location, I couldn't have gotten more than a block. So I, in reference to this map, when I first heard the gunshots, I would have been right about here. And then I traveled southbound and then never made it any more south than about here.
The first place, just for the record, I'm going to try and put that in words.
Actually, sorry.
Go ahead.
Correction. I started here and I never made it more south than about here.
Okay. So you indicate you started at, I think it's labeled on the map there on the east side of Sheridan as Boost, Mobile, and Check and Go. Is that right?
Correct.
And you indicate there's a Ray's barber shop there also?
I believe so, yes.
And then from there you ran south past 61st Street, and you indicated you were somewhere in the middle of the block between 61st and 62nd. Would that be accurate?
That's accurate.
And what happened when you got down to that location?
I had observed people running northbound up Sheridan, and again, hearing people yelling for a medic. But then also I started to hear people yelling that somebody had been shot. So then that confirmed my assumption that somebody did in fact get shot. It was there that while I was live streaming, I met or had contact with the defendant.
Can we please play Exhibit 57, the live stream, starting at the 1 hour, 17 minute, and 10 second mark?
It sounded like gunshots. It sounds like multiple gunshots. People are scattering. Now this is southbound on Sheridan. This is, I was just at 60th. Looks like they even set up a recliner. Oh, 110%, bro.
Yeah, dude.
100. Shots.
Pause there for a moment, Mr. Grosskreutz. This is the video you recorded, correct?
Correct.
And you have told us that you started running from a little bit south of 60th, that gas station, down South Sheridan. Is that right?
That is right.
Were you recording with your phone?
I was.
Were you holding your phone in your hand while you were running?
I was.
Okay. Please continue.
Why you shoot him?
Hey, what are you doing? You shot somebody? Who shot? Who shot?
Can you identify that individual on the screen?
That is the defendant.
Can we rewind 10 seconds and play that again, please?
Hey, what are you doing? You shot somebody?
I want to get police.
Who shot?
Can you tell us, I'm going to ask you two separate questions. First of all, going back into that moment, that interaction you just had with the defendant, what did you think at the time he said to you?
At the time, I had thought that the defendant had said, I'm working with the police. I didn't do anything.
Now that you've had a chance to review the video, do you know what he actually says?
Yes.
What is that?
After watching the video, he said, I'm going to the police.
And did he say anything else?
I didn't do anything, is what I make out from. It's hard to hear from the muffling, but that's what I make out of it.
I want you to try and put yourself back in the frame of that evening when you heard him say something to the effect of, was it, I'm working with the police? Is that right?
Correct.
What was your reaction to that?
I found it odd, and very noteworthy. Previously in the night, an individual I had recorded, Mr. Balch, had described some sort of plan with the police that they were going to essentially push demonstrators south down Sheridan and then past the car source lot, and then from there we're going to essentially retreat or back up that line. And Mr. Balch had explained that there was some sort of understanding, some sort of plan, to whatever extent that is, but that the police were going to push protesters down past the car source. And he said that then the police told him that it was up to the militia members, as they refer to themselves, to deal with them.
When you heard the defendant say what you thought was, I'm working with the police, did that bring back that other knowledge, what Mr. Balch had said?
Yes.
Can we play the video forward just a few more seconds and then I'm going to pause again?
Who shot?
Stop him!
Hey, stop him!
It appears to me, Mr. Grosskreutz, that you ran along or jogged along the defendant for a moment when you had that little interaction. Is that fair to say?
That is.
And then it looks like you kind of let him continue and you turn back south again. Is that fair to say?
That is fair to say, yes.
Why did you do that?
So, you hear me ask the question, who's shot? Who is shot? At that moment, the only thing I was concerned about was finding this person who had been shot, or presumably had been shot. Given that I was still north of where I thought the shots had come from, instinctually I turned, did a 180 facing northbound, then turned southbound, because I was concerned for whoever might be potentially injured.
It appears from the video, though, that you don't go very far before you turn and head back after the defendant. Would that be fair to say?
That is fair to say.
What changed?
I'd seen a number of people running northbound in the same direction as the defendant. I'd started hearing people saying, he just shot that guy, he just shot somebody. So, yeah.
So then you turn around and head back north after the defendant.
I wouldn't say after the defendant.
Why did you turn around and head back north after you heard these people say these things?
With what Mr. Balch had said previously, essentially the way that these self-proclaimed militia members were conducting themselves, the gunshots, people yelling for a medic, my interaction with the defendant, were my interaction with the defendant, and really the lack of information that I had gotten from him, and specifically what I had thought I had heard, then coupled with this group of people running northbound, I had essentially made an inference or an assumption that there could be a potential for somebody getting injured. And anytime you bring a firearm into that equation, the stakes are much higher for both serious injury and death.
Based on all the factors that you just outlined for us, did you feel like your services might, as a medic, might be more needed in the direction the defendant was headed?
Correct.
What did you do after that?
After I had turned around and started running in the same direction as the defendant, again, this I wouldn't say that there was more people joining, but more people were then pointing out the defendant, saying that he had just shot somebody, that he's trying to get away, get him, things of that nature. And then so again, further inferencing from the things I heard and experienced, witnessed earlier in the night, I thought that the defendant was an active shooter. And like I had mentioned earlier, anytime you add a firearm into the equation, like I said, the stakes are so much higher for somebody potentially being seriously injured or being killed.
Can we please pull up exhibit number 5? Exhibit 5. This is the BG on the scene video. Let's go ahead and play that. I'll be pausing here in a little bit. We just saw you come running into the screen from the right. You're just behind that figure in the white shirt. Before this moment, had you drawn your firearm?
No.
Where was it?
Like I mentioned at the beginning, I keep my pistol holstered in the small of my back.
But don't you have it in your hand at this point?
I can't see.
Okay.
Can't see from this video.
Did there come a time when you were running that you did pull your gun out?
Yes.
Why?
Again, in the moment, I thought that the defendant was an active shooter. Having been not too far behind, like you had mentioned, and just about to come into the frame here, I had heard several more gunshots, and again, making inferences, the defendant was the only one with a large caliber rifle. I'd seen an individual jump over the defendant, and then the defendant used his skateboard to hit the defendant, or hold the defendant. Either way, the individual had made contact with the defendant with his skateboard, and then from there, I heard another shot, and then as we can see in this still, an individual, well, yeah.
Okay. I want to back up for a second, Mr. Grosskreutz, because we have other video that shows you pulling your gun out before those shots are fired. So Do you remember specifically, were you intending, when you pulled your gun out, were you intending to use it?
If I had to. I didn't draw my firearm with express intent of using it, but also being ready if I had to use it.
Let's continue the video for a little bit, and I'm going to pause here. Let's pause right there. We've already seen this video. There's an individual on the left who is had been shot at twice by the defendant. Then the defendant is there on the ground, and there's another individual between the defendant and you, Anthony Huber, who has been shot in the chest at this point. And that individual to the right of Mr. Huber that's sort of crouched over, that's you, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Did you witness the defendant fire 2 shots at that man on the left?
I did.
Did you witness him fire a shot into Mr. Huber's chest?
I did.
So when you come upon the defendant at this point, do you recall what you were holding in your hands?
I do.
What were you holding?
In my right hand, I had my Glock pistol, and in my left hand, I had my cell phone.
What was going through your mind at this particular moment?
That I was going to die.
Let's continue the video for just a second, please. Pause. There's a time in this video when you appear to hold your hands up. Do you know about that? Do you recall that?
I do.
Why did you do that?
After Anthony Huber was shot, you can see in the video I'm not too far behind him. And the defendant had, after murdering Anthony Huber...
The objection is sustained. That whether the death of Anthony Huber was caused by murder or not is for you jurors to decide and not for the witness. So please keep that in mind, that people, when they're in the court and they're testifying, they can be affected by their emotions, sometimes by their jobs, and they will, for someone who comes into a physician, for example, with a gunshot wound, may be identified as a victim, and that's the language that they speak in the hospital because the person comes in with a gunshot wound. Here in the court, where the issue is yet to be determined whether someone's a victim or not, and it's to be based on the evidence presented in court, and it's a decision to be made by you jurors.
Hang on, I'm sorry, I have to pause it a sec. Whilst he's explaining, Gaige is not even looking at him.
Yeah.
That to me says that because he's been interrupted, he's trying to remember the bullshit he's about to spill.
Yeah.
He's trying to remember that exact point.
Yeah.
It's a rehearsal. Amber did it.
Oh yeah.
If he was telling the full truth with no bullshit, no added glitter and stars and all that shit, he would be looking at the judge.
Yeah.
He wouldn't be. To me, he looks like he's fucking zoning out so he can remember her.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, the judge said it. Sometimes, people's emotions get the better of him, giving Gaige the benefit of the doubt. But it's like, yeah, if your emotions get the better of you, you don't really want to be remembering all of that shit whilst you're sat there listening to someone talk. Or if you're not listening, it just doesn't look like he's listening.
No.
Sorry, I had to pause and unmute us because this is it's so bad.
Oh yeah.
Oh, just as a side note, I've been writing stuff down on things we want to point out at the end. I'm nearly on my 3rd post-it note. It's so bad.
Not by a witness, not by the judge, not by the prosecutor or the defense attorney. So I'm going to ask you to strike the comment, which was this witness's view of the subject, and because it carries no weight, it's for you folks to decide. Any question about that? Okay, thanks. Go ahead.
So you had just seen Mr. Huber get shot,
Correct.
and so what was going on in your mind?
I was very close to the defendant, and I thought there was a high likelihood that I would be shot myself.
Can we back up and play 10 seconds? Go back 10 seconds, please. Please continue. Pause. At this point in the video, is the defendant pointing his AR-15 at you?
Yes, he is.
And you have your hands raised in the air at this point?
I do.
Continue the video, please. Pause. Did you see the defendant do anything with his gun after you put your hands up?
I did.
What did you see him do?
It's an action that's typically referred to as re-racking a firearm. So after the defendant had pointed his rifle at me and put my hands up, and then the defendant, like I said, did this motion. It's called re-racking, and that's essentially where you take the slide, which on a AR-15 like that would be on the top, and you pull back, and what that does is, depending on if there was already a bullet or a round in the chamber, which would mean it would be ready to fire, as you can put in a magazine, where the bullets are held, and the firearm won't be able to fire. But as soon as you then pull the slide back, like on a pistol or on an AR-15 on the top, that then either loads the rifle or the firearm for it to be ready to fire, or if there was already a round previously in the chamber, that then ejects that round or casing, if that round had been spent, and then reloads the next bullet into the chamber or the barrel.
So after you raised your hands like this, you saw the defendant re-rack the weapon?
Correct.
What did you think was going to happen?
In my experiences and in my inference in that moment, after the defendant had pointed his weapon at me and I had put my hands in the air, re-racking the weapon in my mind meant that the defendant pulled the trigger while my hands were in the air, but the gun didn't fire. So then by re-racking the weapon, I inferred that the defendant wasn't accepting my surrender.
Did you feel that he was going to point the gun and shoot at you again?
Yes.
What did you do then?
So after the defendant had re-racked his weapon with the rifle still aimed at me, in that moment, I felt that I had to do something to try and prevent myself from being killed or being shot or killed. And so I decided that the best course of action would be to close the distance between the defendant and I, and then from there I don't know. I mean, if it meant trying what Anthony had just tried, wrestling the gun, detaining the defendants, I don't know, because I never had an opportunity. I do know, though, I was never trying to kill the defendant. That was never something that I was trying to do. In that moment, I was trying to preserve my own life. But doing so while also taking the life of another is not something that I'm capable or comfortable in doing. That goes against almost a lifelong ethical code that I've lived by in regards to medicine.
Can we back the video up 10 seconds, please? Can we back it up 10 seconds, please? Go ahead. Pause. Mr. Grosskreutz, after seeing the defendant shoot at one person at close range twice, shoot at Mr. Huber in the chest once, and having already been told by others in the crowd that he'd previously already shot someone else, and having him point the gun at you, and you're holding your own pistol in your hand, why didn't you take your own gun and shoot the defendant first?
Like I said, that's not the kind of person that I am. It's not why I was out there. That's not why I was out there for 75 days prior to that. Why I spent, up until that point, spent my time, my money, my education, providing care for people. It's not who I am. And definitely not somebody that I would want to become. And in that moment, I thought it would I tried to attempt a non-lethal way to end that interaction.
When the defendant shot you, where were you hit?
I was hit in my right bicep.
What kind of damage did that do?
I effectively lost a large majority of my right bicep.
Can we please play Exhibit 58? Before we do this, I do want to let everyone know that this is going to be a very graphic. Exhibit, what does Exhibit 58 show?
Myself, after being shot by the defendant.
Are you still holding your Glock in this picture?
I am.
Had you fired your Glock at all that night, at any point?
No.
Okay, so just as a side note, this video is most likely going to be age restricted because why would a 13-year-old be on YouTube? Especially looking at these types of videos. But sorry, I had to unpause for that just so meh.
Can we please show exhibit number 59? Can you describe what this picture shows, Mr. Grosskreutz?
This is me probably 30 seconds after I was shot by the defendant. You see who I believe to be Mr. Lukowski on the right of the screen. Me in the center with the blue paramedic hat. Right above my hat is Mr. Balch, I believe. And then to the left of me, unfortunately I don't know who the two individuals who you can't see their faces are. But then that is a person I came to know as CJ Halliburton, who was also live streaming that night. And him, myself, and Mr. Lukowski are... Mr. Halliburton is applying a tourniquet to my right bicep while Mr. Lukowski and myself are trying to instruct Mr. Halliburton on the use and application of the tourniquet.
Can we please play Exhibit 60?
That was not me! I just saved him! Come on! Hey, look at me. Keep him right there. We're coming out to you. We got right for a bear cat. We're coming out to you.
Hang on. Did someone just walk off with his gun? Look there.
Yeah.
Someone grabbed his gun. Is that the police?
No, it's the one that you may remember earlier. He said it.
But he said he found it when there was no one there.
Someone stole his gun.
No, he didn't.
Took his gun.
Or maybe that's something else. Maybe he's still holding his gun because remember he said his nerve shot, so he can't.
Oh yeah.
He can't let go of it.
No.
I do apologise for any of the gruesomeness. I forgot. That's gross. Anyway, sorry. Let's continue.
Keep him right there. We're coming out to you. We got right for a bear cat. We're coming out to you.
Your Honor, I would move Exhibits 58, 59, and 60 into evidence.
Objection. Received.
Would this be a good time for a break, Your Honor?
It is. Please don't talk about the case during the break. Read what?
Okay. There's quite a bit.
Oh yeah. I got some goose with to pick there, kind of.
Some goose to peek.
Yeah.
You had one, didn't you? You had plenty.
Yeah. You wrote it down. I can't even read it. But the thing
So
is,
you mentioned at the start that he was basically bullshitting. This is after the video.
yeah.
That nobody was being hostile to anyone in castles.
Yeah. He literally said no. There was no hostility. It's like.
Sure.
Okay, if that's not hostility, then okay.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, no.
There was 2 more times of improper expert testimony again in this bit. One was about what an EMT does.
Yeah.
I mean, right, so this is what's getting me, okay? He's giving information about what an EMT does, but he has a paramedic hat.
Yeah.
But he's already said paramedics and EMTs are not the same.
Yeah.
So it's either he's cosplaying as a paramedic,
Hmm.
or he's bullshitting what he thinks an EMT does.
Yeah.
Tell you what, I've worked in customer service for years. I'm not a fucking expert in it.
No.
I've played games for a long time. I'm not a gaming expert.
I worked in a restaurant, but I'm not Gordon Ramsay.
No, you're a chef. Remember, don't worry.
I'm not Gordon Ramsay.
You're an expert in food colouring.
Yeah.
And there's also the I wrote it down because there was so much crap, so much. Where he said essentially what a gun does.
Yeah.
He's not, again, I understand why he's saying it, but he's not an expert.
Yeah.
It's again improper expert opinion. He can't, unless he knows the full ins and outs of a gun, in which, if he does, why would he advance on someone who has a gun?
Yeah, but we have the lovely part there when he says he swore the oath and he would never hurt someone with a gun and so on. So why did you have a gun? But then again...
No, he said that his intent wasn't to kill the defendant. But he had said previously that that basically when a gun is brought is brought into a situation, it the stakes are higher and injury is more likely.
Yeah.
So why did he pull his gun from the waist then? If you weren't intending to do any harm, why would you withdraw your gun from where you had it safely put, in his version?
And as he said, he didn't know what to do with the gun, so I guess he wanted to wrestle Kyle down with a gun.
I reckon he wanted to give Kyle a little bit of smooch, you know?
Yeah.
Because if he's not pulled his gun intending to kill Kyle, I don't know. Also, this was right near the beginning of this video. He said that he ran after his comment about the gunshots, and then on the video, it actually shows that he wasn't running until someone had said that somebody had been shot.
Yeah.
So I know it's a little it's a small discrepancy, but it's enough for me. Like it's not cohesive with what he's saying. Also, his own live stream, even though he knew he had the assumption that someone had been shot, he wasn't going to the person who he thought was shot.
No.
He was running after Kyle.
Oh yeah.
And if his entire education and work has been, helping people and saving people, why would you go after an active shooter? Like, why would you, even if you know that someone's been shot, why would you still follow him?
Yeah, you should attend to the one that's injured. So.
Also, he said that Kyle and the others in the group refer to themselves as militia members. Nobody has said that.
No.
Nobody has said that they're militia members.
I haven't watched these. As I said when Mike was off this, I haven't watched these, and even I knew that they didn't call themselves militia members.
It was the media.
Yeah.
And the ones on the that the state have brought on, calling Kyle and the militia members. It wasn't. They hadn't called themselves it.
No.
It was weird that Court TV blacked out and muted a bit.
Oh yeah, that was suspicious.
Well, it's also the fact if the feed had been cut, there'd be it wouldn't be a black screen.
No.
at all. And it's not as if there was anything gruesome. I mean, they fucking showed his arm being open and shit. Also, he didn't bother to go check on Anthony, even though he saw Anthony get shot. He still was going at Kyle.
Oh yeah. So the medical oath, as he said, meant bullshit.
Well, it's just the fact that it's as if he's not including himself in the shit that he says.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what type of personality crap does that. I don't think it's narcissist. There's a personality type that don't associate themselves with what they're saying. And I can't remember what it was.
Well, one thing
Sociopath? Hang on, is it sociopath?
Yeah, it could be.
So like, they'll be the ones. I don't know if anyone's seen sort of police interrogation where the suspect has been, they've either been diagnosed as a sociopath or I think it's either sociopath or psychopath. It's part of psychopathy. Blech. That essentially they'll when the police ask them, because it's part of the read technique, they'll ask them, if somebody did kill X person, what do you think should happen to them? And they'll they should go to prison. They should be, and it's like a really extreme sort of extreme answer.
Yeah.
When they know full well that they did it, but they're disassociating themselves with the crime.
Yeah.
It just doesn't, what he's saying doesn't, it's not lining up.
It does not compute.
Like, he's holding himself to such a higher standard, and it's like, no, buddy, you're swimming around in the shit like everyone else. Get on board.
Like I said during the Microsoft, he makes her look intelligent.
I don't know. That's that's a stretch. That's a real stretch. For me, it's just the fact that he's so blatantly lying, and like the fact that he says video doesn't lie. It's like, no, it does not, Gaige. No, it does not. Do you want to stop talking, Gaige? That would be a good idea. Just let your video talk.
Yeah.
Oh, God. It goes to the fact that he doesn't associate himself with what he's saying. Because, I mean, fuck's sake. But anything else to add?
No.
Right, well, thanks for watching this far if you have. Leave a comment if you have a comment. Leave a like if you want to. Leave a dislike if you want to. Subscribe if you want to. You don't have to do any of that. We'll see you in the next one. Hopefully, anyway. So, stay hydrated, wear sunscreen, don't eat yellow snow.
And don't feed the seagulls.
Caca, motherfucker. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.